Cooperative Legacy Project interview number 77, June 5th, 2007. We're visiting with former Bristol and Pierpont Farmers Union Oil Company Director Franklin Olson. Franklin, where and when were you born?
I was born out in the farm north of Holmquist in 1933, March 10th, 1933. Dr. Murphy, an old country doctor, delivered me.
Okay. Where's Holmquist at?
It's about 12 miles. It's 6 miles west of Webster, and I was 6 miles west and about 7 miles north of Holmquist is where I was born.
Okay. What was your father's name?
Oscar.
You want to talk about him a little bit? What sort of
He was a Farmers Union man and a Democrat. I got my name because this Dr. Murphy told my dad, being you just elected a Democrat, you better name this one Franklin. So that's how I got my name.
Oh, Franklin Roosevelt, huh?
Yeah. Okay.
What sort of a guy was he, though, your dad, other than having you as a son?
He liked to talk politics. He thoroughly enjoyed Farmers Union and politics. That was pretty much his life. He was County Farmers Union president. He was president of our local. He was president of the county twice, I think, and attended a lot of state conventions. He went to Washington, D.C. a couple times. Mm-hmm. Went to National Convention a couple times. He was really involved with Farmers Union. He was involved with the Democratic Party too, but a lot of people claim that only Farmers Union members are only Democrats, but that's not true.
What was your mother's name?
Edith. She was born 10 miles out of Laurel, Montana. No, not. She was born in Wisconsin, but her folks moved to Laurel and had a dairy farm there. And then her my grandpa, his health failed in the late 20s, and so they moved to Webster, and he had a harness shop in Webster. And he passed away in 1936.
Okay. And you have brothers and sisters?
I have 4 brothers. I have 5 brothers and 2 sisters. My youngest brother drowned when he was a year and a half old. Drowned in the stock water tank. It's a sad day.
Yeah. What are your
and my brother, younger than I am, passed away in 1992, I think.
Okay. And the other ones, what are their names? Where are they at?
Magnus, the oldest, is in Brookings. He went to college and after he got out of service, and he started a business remodeling houses and painting, and then he started a paint and carpet and wallpaper store, which he had until he retired. Mm-hmm. But he still lays some ceramic tile and window treatment, and he's busy remodeling an old 1928 Chevrolet that he's worked on for years. I asked him once, when do you think you'll get it done? And he said, probably I'll never get it done, but I enjoy the time I spend working on it. So. And my youngest brother is in Brandon. He does flooring and kind of retired. My sister lives in Sioux Falls. My oldest sister lives in Sioux Falls. And she's pretty much a housewife and does volunteer work. And my youngest sister taught school in Des Moines. Lives in Indianola, Iowa, and taught school Des Moines for 35 years. She's been retired for youngest in the family and been retired for several years already.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Where was the family originally from? Scandinavian?
My dad was from Sweden, and my dad's dad, my grandpa Olson, was from Sweden, and my grandma Olson was from Norway. And on my mother's side, they come originally from Wisconsin, from Paradasheen, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a rocking chair my grandma brought on the ship from Norway, and we have that yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. When did they arrive here in Day County?
My grandpa came here in about 1988, 87. He homesteaded in 1988, I think.
1888.
And pardon?
You 1888.
1888. Yeah. Pardon me.
Yeah. What are some of your early memories out on the farm here? Is this the same farm?
No.
Or no?
No, my dad. The farm I was born on was my dad's home place, but it was sold at public auction, and we bought this place in 1944, and then we moved here in 1945.
Okay.
I was 12 years old then. I know where every rock and every fence post and everything is here. I've worked here ever since. So.
Okay.
All but 2 years I worked in the Army. I worked here all the time.
Okay. When you were young, what did you want to do? Did you want to farm always?
I always wanted to be a farmer. And I thank my wife for giving me the chance to do that.
Did she ever think that maybe something else might be a good thing to do?
No, I don't think she's ever said that.
Good.
Probably I never give her the chance.
Okay. Life on the farm when you probably first remember is maybe around 1940, 41, 42 in there. They say people don't remember much before they're 9 years old. Quite a bit different than today.
I started running tractor when I was 9 years old, 8 years old, 9 years pretty steady. So I was in 42, 1942. Yeah. We thrashed and cut grain with binder. We did that until 1957.
Okay.
And I got married in 1958, so I had to change my ways. No, I would have changed earlier, but my dad was kind of from the old school, so we stayed with the thrash machine for quite a while.
Was that fairly common in this part of South Dakota?
Oh yeah, we had a pretty good sized run. There was 7 farmers that thrashed together when we quit. So.
Okay. Farms were pretty much smaller around.
Oh yeah, then they were.
Today.
I suppose the biggest farms probably in them days were 400 acres, 400 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Got a buddy.
Yeah. Let's see here. Where did you go to school at?
Went to country school and to the 5th grade in Lynn Township till I was in the 5th grade. Then I finished through the 8th grade just a quarter mile north of where we live. Then I went 4 years to high school in Roslyn, graduated from Roslyn.
Okay. What was country school like up here? What was did you give me the name of that?
The name of the school?
Yeah.
It was Fairview 153 was the name of the school. And the first school we went to was Gem District 205, so I remember them.
There were a lot of country schools back in the
days. There was. My mother was a country school teacher, and she taught in several country schools. But
Okay, you mentioned Farmers Union. Was there a youth program up here?
Well,
Did you participate in that?
we had a good youth, our local had a good youth program.
Mm-hmm.
We had a big local, one of the biggest locals in the state, I think.
Okay.
I was treasurer of it for quite a few years till we finally abandoned and went just
What was the name of the local?
Independence 923.
Okay. Based pretty much on a township size, or was it?
It was
bigger
township.
than a township?
Just Independence Township, that's how.
And there were a number of them in Day County at that time?
Independence and Rusk and yeah, there was. Let's see, how many was there? I think of two of them. That's about all of the locals.
Yeah.
There must have been no. There was some that started up, but not too many lasted. But Independence and Rusk, they went a long time.
Yeah. They were kind of a social institution back.
Yeah.
Some people think that maybe they kind of started going downhill when television came in and people had something to do at home. But a lot of other activities in later years that drew people away.
I think it had something to do with it.
Yeah. Population loss too.
Population went down. That was the big thing.
Yeah. Do you think that people got a good education in those country schools?
Excellent education. I think. I've done pretty well.
Okay.
I think.
All right. And then how about high school? Was that pretty good in Roslyn?
We had a good high school, but didn't have an awful lot of subjects, but had some awful good teachers, and
they taught multiple courses, I suppose.
we had history, English, we had ag, and we had FFA. We had shop, and I built several things. I learned to weld in high school. Kind of learned. My teacher didn't know much more than I did, but I got interested in welding, and I really enjoy it.
You graduated when, about 1951? Okay. And did you think about going to college at all?
No, I didn't. I thought I was too smart, I guess.
All right.
I had to farm.
Okay. And your wife's name?
Joanne?
Yeah, Joanne. And when did you get married? You said
58.
Okay. You mentioned something about military service.
I spent 2 years in the Army.
When was that?
I was in Fort Riley, Kansas, and went to school in Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And then I went to Fort Lewis, Washington for a while, and then we went TDY to Yakima Firing Center in Yakima, Washington, back to Fort Lewis, back to Yakima, back to Fort Lewis. Then my company went to Alaska and to go some cold weather training up there, and I wanted to go up there. I offered to extend 6 months to go with them, but they wouldn't let me extend for 6 months, and I didn't want to stay any longer. So
was this after the Korean War?
Well, I went in. The Korean War was just ending when I went in. I went in 54.
Oh, okay.
And got out in 56. January 6th of 54 I went in, and January 6th of 56 I got out.
Okay. One of the things I like to talk to people about is of course, one of the main co-ops we have out here, and that's the rural electrics. Do you remember when you got electricity around here?
We got electricity in 1957.
57?
I mean 47.
47, okay.
1947.
Had you had like a wind charge or anything
No.
like that before that? Okay, so
We did, when we lived down in Lynn Township, we had a generator there, but But then when the 30s come, well, they couldn't afford batteries, so they went to junk.
Yeah.
But all we had was kerosene lanterns and gas lamps in the house.
So when they got you finally connected, that was a big deal. And
Yep. We didn't have very many light bulbs, but they were great.
what else what kind of things else do you besides light bulbs?
We had refrigerator and wash machine was one of the first things I guess we got, and refrigerator and deep freeze. And then the appliances kept gradually coming.
Okay. Let's see here. Kids, you have kids?
We have 4.
And where are they all at?
Our oldest girl lives in Webster and she works at the rest home in Bristol.
What's her name?
Christy. There's Tom's second boy, he's in Billings, or only boy, he's in Billings. He works at construction. He does a lot of roping and he's a cowboy.
Okay. Did you get into that here, or?
Yeah, he started it when he was so little. He started throwing a rope when he was just a kid. He just won 3rd place in the team roping competition in Montana out of 800 and some teams. He won $7,000 and a new saddle and a jacket. So he won first in that in 1998. So he's done pretty good in this. Trains a lot of horses. And her 3rd daughter, she lives in about 2 miles out of Webster. They farm, and she works at the Blossom Shop. And Diane's her name. Kay, our youngest daughter, passed away a year and a half ago. Sad time.
Okay. So, how did you get involved with cooperatives? Were your family always cooperative supporters up here?
I've supported cooperatives all my life. I wasn't too old when my dad was a charter member of the Pierpont Farmers Union when it started. And he never was on the board, but I went on the board when I was 25 years old and served on the board for 34 years.
What was the history of local cooperatives around here? There was the Pierpont Oil Company. There's some other ones around here.
Pierpont. There was Pierpont, Bristol. Fernie is still going. Bristol. Pierpont bought out Bristol when I was on the board. Did well for many, many years. Now they're joined with Four Seasons Cooperative in Britain. That wasn't what I thought was a good deal, but times change, I guess. I think we had an excellent cooperative, and then we had our GTA line elevator in Webster was there for many, many years. I've served as an advisory board on that for 6 or 9 years, I can't remember.
What was it that you liked about co-ops? You said you've been involved for a long time. And why?
Pardon, say that again.
What did you like about cooperatives? Why you were involved with them for a long time?
Well, I think farmers need their own business. They need to have a place to do business. They need to share in the profits if there is profits. They need to be involved in expansions, and there's a lot to belonging to a cooperative. It gives you a place to do business, and that gives you a chance to take part in your business, to know what's going, and if you want to, you can be on boards, and you could probably even be manager if you wanted to.
Do you think that some people have suggested to me that people with Scandinavian heritage have a special affinity for co-ops? Do you think that's true? Do you think
I don't know if that's especially
more
true.
so than anybody else?
They were in this area, of course, it was all pretty much Scandinavian, but
Yeah.
there's other areas where they weren't Scandinavian too much, and they are
Okay.
pretty cooperative minded.
When you first were elected to the board at Pierpont, what were the kind of issues you were dealing with? And what year was that? Do you remember? About
1958.
Okay. What kind of issues were you dealing with there at that time?
Company was small. We had a new manager that's had only been there a year. He was doing a pretty good job. He was green. He come from Salem. Ed Weber still lives here in Roslyn. I talked to him yesterday, and he's having a little problem with cancer, but he's doing pretty well as far as battling it. He was excellent co-op man. He worked hard. The day he retired, we went in the office and talked, and he said, Franklin, in the past 30 years, we've seen a lot of changes. He said, we had a very few bad years, but we had a lot of awful good years. He said, we made money. Prisoner always made money in all the years he managed.
He managed there for 30 years?
I think it was about 30 or 31 years. Wow. Then he worked as the assistant manager in Bristol for another 3 years.
Okay. He was managing when you got on.
He had been there 1 year when I started.
Okay. You think things were easier or more difficult when you had a little small operation like that? Was it a little easier, or was it more harder than it is today?
I think it was easier because patrons were really loyal to the company, and they patronized, and we sold everything there was to sell. We had hardware, we had anything you wanted to buy, you could buy at the station in Pierpont. And population was thick. We had a lot more people, and it was kind of the backbone of Pierpont for many, many, many years.
Mm-hmm. Was there was a double circle co-op over in Webster?
Community oil company.
Yeah, was that kind of a little conflict between those that were affiliated with farmland and the ones that were affiliated with the Central Exchange?
I don't think it was, but they weren't nearly as aggressive as, took good managers to make co-ops aggressive. Good managers and a good board of directors made the cooperatives aggressive. Some weren't as fortunate as we were.
In some areas of the state, just having service was an important factor. Was that true here? Just
yep.
Having the service that the co-op provided in the community?
We kind of miss that. We don't have the service that we had years ago.
Did you have a chance to work with interesting people? You mentioned Ed Weber, the manager, for most of those years. What about other members of the board? Were there some other good guys on the board?
Well, we had a lot of good men on the board. Clifford Larson over here was on the board for many years. Excellent man. David Topel was on the board for many years. Excellent co-op man. Doug Smines, he was on the chairman of the board for many years. Goes all the way back to Art Rye, but a lot of them are gone. A lot of companies had term limits, which I don't believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Our term limits were election time, and a lot of times we lost some good board members, young board members, through accidents, health, and just passed away early. And I've seen a lot of changes in board members, not because they were voted off, because their health failed or they moved or something. But we had some awful good board members.
Mm-hmm. Did you lose some that just got out of farming?
Some of them did.
During those years?
A few of them did. They retired. And some retired earlier than I am.
Yeah. Well, some people never retire.
That's true.
What about it from the regional level? Did you have regional people that came in from Central Exchange?
Oh, yeah. Pretty regular. I guess I remember Ed Reinecke was the first field man that I remember. And when I was elected to the board, well, I guess I looked kind of young, and Ed was kind of he spoke what he thought, and he said, "Do you think you're capable? You think you're," how do you say it? Didn't think I'd ever forget. He said, "Do you think you're qualified to be a board member of Farmers Union Oil in Pierpont?" I said, "Yes, I do." I said, I'm a stockholder, and I bought all my products here, and I believe in Cooperative, and I'm capable of being a board member. He never said another word. We got along fine. And Dean Rasmussen was a good field man.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Jackson, I remember him. He was not our field man, but his son was our manager for a while, and I never even knew they were father and son until his son had been here quite a while when I found out that, and I'd known Harold for 25 years. It was kind of a funny deal when I walked into the board meeting one night. We had to do insurance work, and I said, "Well, Harold, what are you doing here?" Well, he said, "I retired and I'm doing insurance work part-time." I said, "Are you two connected?" "He's my dad," Kevin said. So he was an excellent manager, but he didn't want to come in on his dad's shoestrings.
No.
And he's doing a great job at Windham, Minnesota now. So.
Okay. You mentioned you spent some time on an advisory board at Elevator at Webster.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first round of GTA actually directly owning elevators. That was one of the line elevators.
They had an old line elevator in Webster when I first started farming. Then they built a brand new elevator, which burnt not too many years ago.
Yeah. Did they eventually sell all those? And
they sold that. Well, after it burnt, they sold it to Watertown Co-op. I was on the advisory board there for 2-3 years. But
Now, was that an advisory board from up here in this area to kind of advise? They were an independent co-op down there, weren't they? Yeah. Was that after they had built the big elevator there that's existing?
Yep, down after they built the big one in Watertown.
Okay. Challenges facing cooperatives have changed over the years. One of those challenges is the question of mergers. You want to talk about how that's gone and were you approached? Bristol and Pierpont merged at some point, right?
Yeah. Well, that was a good merger, and everybody did it fine. I had a big dream in them days that I thought Fernie and Bristol and Pierpont should all go together and build one big station right east of Andover, but it didn't fly. I think it was a good idea. Now, But everybody thought our small co-ops were going to last forever, which they didn't. And we would have had an excellent place if we'd have set up where I wanted to, but I didn't win them all. In fact, I lost quite a few, but I had quite a few things that I did win on. So
it's quite a struggle dealing with that issue at the local level where people want to maintain the...
They like to keep, and some of the directors thought the bigger farmers were the ones to cater to, and I was opposed to that. I'm still opposed to that. I just told our agronomy man from Four Seasons, I said, there's a lot of small farms from east of Pierpont all the way to Roslyn, but I said, when you put them all together, it's a lot of land. But we need to get them small farmers back because they pay their bills and they do a good job. They're important. I think they're more important than the big farmer.
You think maybe they've been neglected then?
The small farmer, I think, has been neglected. As far as these cooperatives are getting big, and when big farms come in and farmers come in and they want to buy tons and tons of fertilizer, I'm sure they get a better deal than the guy that wants 20 ton of fertilizer or 10 ton. I'm sure they get a lot better deal. I always said that. I said we cater to when I was on the board, I said we cater to the big guys that don't need the help, but the little guy comes in, and if he can't pay his account every 30 days right on time, why, he has to pay interest on his account, and the big boys usually can handle it, so they get a better deal. So I always said we really didn't help the ones that needed help.
Do you think maybe some co-ops has it been the smaller guys who ran into economic trouble, or the big guys that brought down some co-ops?
Well, I think so. I think I always said we never had to worry about our counts from the small operators. It was always the big ones that we had to kind of worry about. But we didn't have a whole lot of problem with bad accounts in all the years that I was on. And we went through some pretty tough years, 76, 88, 69. There were some tough years in there. But
what about the oil embargo back in the early 70s? Did that create a problem around here? Were you able to get supply here?
We had a little problem with getting enough fuel, and one time I stopped at the station and Ed told me I bought a semi-load of fuel the other day from a scalper come through, and he had a semi-load of fuel, and I said, we've never done that before, have we? I said, do you think it was a good idea? Well, probably not. Buddy said I needed fuel. But after he got through replacing a whole bunch of fuel filters for farmers around the country, that was the last semi-load of scalper fuel he ever bought, because it was junk. But that was one thing, when you buy from your cooperative, you're getting quality products. I've been through the oil refinery in St. Paul many times, and where they make oil, and watching where they make oil. And boy, they do. Their research is unbelievable on that oil and the diesel fuel and gas. You never hear of people having trouble with petroleum products from your Cenex companies.
How important do you think cooperative education is? And do you think there's been enough of that done?
I think it's very important. That's the only college I ever went to. I went to Marshall, Minnesota for 5 days once for a cooperation deal they taught down there for 5 days. And you'd think it was a picnic, but we were going to classes at 7 in the morning until 9, 10 at night. But it was very interesting. And so I did go to college 5 days. No, I think co-op education is one thing we're really slipping up on. We used to do a lot of it. We used to send young couples to young couple conferences and stuff all the time. We used to send from Pierpont all the time. I spoke at the duties of a director at a young couples conference in Spearfish once. A lot of them young couples who were there still remember the speech I made, and I didn't really know how to speak, but they remembered it. People remember grassroots. They remember them things. And Senex had a lot of director seminars. I attended every one of them. I can still remember the first teacher, Henry Typo. He was the teacher of the first director seminar. The other ones, he really impressed me, and the other ones I can't remember their names, but he was impressive.
And they had those manager-director meetings every year, didn't they?
Yep, but they taught these director seminars usually lasted 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They were.
Was your co-op good about going to the annual meeting?
Well, we didn't.
Some co-ops that maybe weren't so regular.
We didn't miss too many of the annual meetings. You went a lot of times too, but she didn't go to the meetings. She went shopping. No, a lot of people still remember me because I would get up and speak on the floor, and I told them what I didn't think was right, and sometimes I won, sometimes I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Were the annual meetings a big deal around here in the early years?
Being at the big annual meeting?
Well, your local co-op annual meeting.
Oh yeah, we had big crowds. We always put on a meal, and we filled the stone building in Pierpont. Well, it used to be in the old Masonic temple when we first started, but it was full all the time. Oh yeah, the people, they really come out for the annual meetings, especially if you're having a little problem, so then they really come out.
Did you think that they took a big interest in what was going on at the co-op?
Oh yeah, people really took an interest in it.
Do you think that continued over the years, or did that maybe...
Oh, we stayed strong until we quit. Mm-hmm. Not as many go to the annual meeting now that Four Seasons is there from our area.
Yeah, so you go up to Britain now to...
Well, they have it in Aberdeen.
Aberdeen, okay. Do you think that younger producers today have the same level of loyalty that they had in earlier years?
No.
Is it difficult? You talk about the young producers. Did it get more difficult over the years to get people to spring themselves loose from whatever they were doing to participate in that kind of thing?
I think so, and people don't remember when I first got involved in cooperatives. We didn't have any place to do business. We had old line or privately owned elevators that they made a profit. They stuck it all in their pocket, and most of them made pretty good profits. And very few good oil companies. Pierpont had 2-3 little oil companies, but they didn't, as far as doing much for the customer, they didn't do a whole lot. You didn't know what they were selling for product. And one thing you never got, if there was profit at the end of the year, you never got anything back. Mm-hmm. And I've always liked to get my dividend check at the end of the year. I would kind of look forward to that.
Do you think cooperatives cooperate enough with each other as being a particular kind of business as opposed to everybody else out here?
I think they're cooperating together more now than they did a few years back, but I think people are starting to see that there is a need for cooperation and working together. Like petroleum partners now, that a few years ago, wheat growers and Senex wouldn't have talked, but now they give up the fuel business and turned it all into one. So they're talking and doing things together more than they did 10 years ago or 15 years ago. When I was on the board, the last years I was on the board, there was not much cooperation between co-ops. And
in some areas of the state, there's been a trend toward what is known as regionalization. Are you familiar with that? Whereby people swap their shares in their local co-op for shares in the regional, and the regional then pretty much runs the local.
I've never known much about that. So.
Okay.
No. I guess I'm dumb about that. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I guess we talked about some of the special problems facing smaller cooperatives. What was it around here that finally caused you to make the decision to merge with Four Seasons?
They weren't making a profit, I guess, was the big reason. I have my own reasons, but I'm not going to say it in front of this thing.
Okay, whatever you want to do. Do you think there are any perils that cooperatives face as they expand or merge with other co-ops? Anything that could go wrong there? We talked about what can happen if you didn't merge, but what if you did? Is it kind of problems both ways?
Well, years ago, Farmland Industries was big, but they got too big for their pants. They went broke. I was on the board when Senex and Farmland were talking about merging, and I talked hard against that because I never did care much for the way Farmland did their business. I think they can get too big. I think the biggest problem with the local cooperatives like Watertown Co-op, Elevator, Four Seasons Cooperative, to get quality managers that can handle that kind of a business are tough to come by. Mm-hmm. It takes a superman to manage a business when it gets huge.
Mm-hmm. How important was the relationship between the Farmers Union and the co-op here?
It was good as long as I was on the board, but they always called me the co-op man on the board, and I said I made sure they paid their educational due into the educational fund, and we never had no problem for all the years Ed Weber was on, because he was just a super good cooperative man, and he believed in education for young people. Mm-hmm. And the last manager we had in Pierpont, that was the last thing he could think of was educational funds, but I pressed him pretty hard, and one day he gave me a check for $1,000. So probably he thought he had to do things, but they don't really believe in educating like they used to. I don't believe.
You think there's a difference between educating board members and educating the general membership?
I don't think they educate the board members either, and I don't think the board members are interested enough to get the education if they had it.
Let's talk a little bit about Farmers Union. You, like you said, you've been county president, district officer ever?
Nope.
Okay. I know you've been a delegate to the National Convention at least once. What was the first one, Billings?
First one was Billings. Then we just went. I wasn't a delegate to, then I was a delegate to Denver.
Denver, okay.
I've been to 3 national conventions.
Mm-hmm. Was that a good experience for you?
Excellent. But I would have liked to have gone last year, but it's probably a good thing we didn't. I don't know how the chores would have got done around here.
Well, there were a lot of disappointed people that last year that hoped to go and ended up getting stuck in the airport.
Well, that happened one other time. No, that was the annual meeting they had out in Spokane, Washington.
Were you on the bus that got stuck in Montana?
No, we flew out.
Oh, you flew out, okay.
We made it.
Oh, but there were some people that got stuck one year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I've never been on a fly-in. I'd always wanted to, but it seemed like money and time, and I don't know if John really would like to go to Washington, D.C. or not, but I think she would. But.
We'll be probably looking for people to go this fall. I'm not exactly sure what the situation's going to be there. I may do a little recruiting.
Yeah.
I used to do some recruiting for that, so you might want to think about it.
I've been to D.C. when I was in service, but that's 50-some years ago.
That's a little bit different experience. Okay, get to the last page here. Did your kids participate in the education program here?
Oh, yeah.
Any torchbearers?
Kay was. Well, Diane, she wasn't a camper, and Tom, he went a few camps, but
takes a little perseverance to go.
He was a cowboy, and his horse wasn't being thought. He was at Farmers Union Camp when I bought the first pony he had. But he had to pay for some of it. Boy, he went upstairs and he got his few dollars and he had to pay some on his horse, but he was a pretty good horse, though. But
what kind of advice would you give someone today that was thinking about maybe becoming active, looking at the cooperatives around here and wanting to participate?
It's exciting. There's lots of things to do, and it's a chance to learn and chance to take part in your business. It's just all kinds of things to do. You can get involved in legislation for the cooperatives, and you can get involved in politics along with it. You get to know a lot of people, and looking through this book, I see so many faces, and I know a lot of people that wouldn't even have the slightest idea who they are, but I've met them because I've been involved in rural water and Farmers Union all my life, so got to know a lot of people.
Okay. Looking back over the years, what would you say has been your biggest disappointment in working with co-ops?
Yeah. Biggest disappointment is people aren't loyal, and they think they got to shop around, and they forget about the fact that if the co-op makes any money, they might charge you a little more, but at the end of the year, if they make any money, you're going to get your share back. Where if you go to a private person and they make a few bucks, they aren't going to give you any back.
Once again, looking back, what are you most proud of that you were involved in?
Well, I'm proud of the fact that I served on the board for 34 years and I only missed 2 board meetings in 34 years. And I think you have to be proud of doing what you're doing and want to do it in order to do that.
You have to do a good job to stay on the board for 34 years, I would think.
I think so.
Otherwise, somebody would have said, hey, let's get that guy.
I made up my mind when I was 60 years old I was going to quit. And Kevin Jackson come out here one day and he said, you got time to sit down and visit a little bit? And I said, I guess so. I said, what are you going to tell me, you're leaving? No, he said, I'm telling you, I'd wish you'd stay on the board another 3 years. And I said, why? Well, he said, I'm going to interview. And he said, you have a good eye and you know how to pick a good manager. And probably, if I get this job, I'll probably be leaving and you'll have to get a new manager. And well, I said, them other guys can do that. But I don't think they did. They had a big problem with managers. And we never had much trouble with managers as long as I was on the board. Mm-hmm. We went to visit Kevin down in Minnesota where he was working, and 3 of us went down there to visit with him. And I'll think of the name of the town, but right now it don't come. And Kevin managed the agronomy department there, and we talked with him. It was a stormy day, and he was out helping an employee put a box on a truck. And he said, what are you guys doing here? Well, we said, we'd like to visit with you a little bit. We had interviewed him before in Pierpont. We talked with him a little bit, and then we went up and talked to his general manager, and he said, Kevin's a hard worker. He expects a lot out of his men. He wants them to work, but he's a hard worker. I said, is that wrong? No, I guess not. So we went back out and talked with him again, and he really turned me on. And we got in the car and started for home, and I said, why don't we go back and offer Kevin a job? I said. They said, do you think we dare? I said, 4 more of them could have been in this vehicle. They didn't want to go, I said. And we're here, I said, let's turn around and go back. What are you going to offer them? Figure out a price. So we stopped and talked a few minutes, and we went back about 10 miles and told Kevin we'd done some talking and we're going to offer you a job. And he said, I'll let you know in 10 days. And we hired him. We come home and we told the rest of the board we offered him a job. Is he going to be any good? We think so. You guys don't know, do you? We watched him work. And he did a super duper job.
How has your community changed over the years here?
We don't have very many neighbors left anymore. We used to have a lot of neighbors and a lot of young people. We got a fair amount of 50s, but as far as we got a young fellow, David Chopner's son, he's wanting to start farming. He's just finishing vocational school. He's got 1 year left, I think. Isn't it? And then we got Chad Wasilk over here. He milks. He's a young fellow. So we got some young. We got probably more young. And Ryan Wagner, he's just come back. He's married to what's their names? They're from down by Mitchell. And he's on the state. I think he's on the state board. Ha! He's always at county councilors' meetings and everything.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name, Nancy?
Huh?
Her name is Nancy? I think it's Nancy and Delbert?
Delmer.
Or Delmer.
Oh, yeah.
Delmer, what's his last name? Mueller. Ryan's married to their daughter. So they just moved back. They're going to farm in the Wagner Corporation. Nice young fellow.
Okay.
And she's been teaching, so that's a young person coming back, and hopefully I'm sure he will stay. And there's nothing I'd like to see than more young people come back.
Do you think there's anything that could be done about if we're looking at policy that people could do to encourage young farmers?
They have to have the land, and these big operators around here, they're getting so greedy on cash rent, and boy, they don't care if it's a young guy starting out or what. They just blow them off, and they don't have a chance. And I don't know why does a guy have to have 30, 40 quarters of land to farm, but boy, they just shoot these small guys right out of the saddle when it comes to bidding on this cash rent and price of land.
What is the price of land around here now?
It goes all the way from 1,100 to 2,500. And they just sold land right next to ours up my north farm, and I don't know what I'd say they were up in that 1,100 to 1,200 an acre. For half of it's underwater, and the guys from Maryland bought it, and they're building a 4,200 square foot house on it.
From Maryland?
From Maryland.
Wow.
It's mansion. Well, I'm sure nobody's gonna ever farm that land again unless the farm that I was born on, that my grandpa homesteaded, that sold for 2 years ago for $1,325 an acre. You can't make a living farming and pay that kind of money for it. And he claims it's never going to be as long as he owns it. Nice young fellow, but he's got a lot of money and dog trainer. He said, as long as I own it, there will never be a plow on it. And I'm sure he's right, as long as he owns it. But
is some of the land around here for hunting then, or are they using it for that?
Hunting and recreation is what they buy it for.
Mm-hmm. There's been quite a bit of interest around here in the landowner rights issue with regard to meandering water. Has that been?
That's a big issue. We got some land with fish on and in the slough, and people think they own it. They didn't pay for it. I did. And our family, we worked hard to pay for it. But they think they can just move right in and start fishing on it. And I put all my CRP land and pasture into walk-in hunting because people were hunting on it anyway, and I wasn't getting nothing out of it. So
you get a little bit of money that way?
I get pretty good out of it. So we get about $4,000 a year for walk-in hunting.
Really?
And we weren't getting not very many thank yous before, so.
Yeah.
And we haven't got as many people hunting on it now as we did before because they can't drive on it now, they have to walk.
Just a couple questions left. Are you? The first one is: are you an optimist or a pessimist?
I'm an optimist.
Okay. I don't think I've hardly run into a pessimist. I've run into people who say pessimistic things on occasion, but they never will admit to being that. And finally, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about? I never know what I'm going to get there.
Well, I don't know. Number one, I think farming is a great life. And a lot of people think young people can't farm anymore, but I think you can buy all kinds of used machinery for cheap nowadays. Mm-hmm. The last new tractor I bought was in 1980, and I paid $27,000 for it. But you can buy that tractor. I'll bet you that tractor today, and I still own it, wouldn't bring $10,000, but it'll still do the same work. But they don't want to. They want everything new, and they want the brand new air seeders that cost $150,000, and can't start that way. I couldn't start that way. I started with a E3 co-op and a
Mm-hmm.
and a G John and an A John Deere. That's what I started with.
Do you think maybe a cooperative might be the answer to those kind of machinery prices? You mentioned that when you were young, why they were still crashing around here and going together to do that. People don't do that kind of thing very much today.
No, they don't. They don't work together, and I think that's one thing. I think the Hutterites got it all over on us because they do things cooperatively. We had a Hutterite work for us, and he said they don't have a lot of real fancy, but they know how to repair stuff, and he was just super at doing everything busy, and he was young, but he knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the younger generation. They don't spend time in the shop. I fix every day and fiddle around out there, but the younger generation really don't want to do that. They want everything new, and if problems happen, they call John Deere International or whatever. I didn't call them very much. I used to fix them myself. But
That was pretty much the way things were on the farm, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
For almost everybody in earlier years.
But I have neighbors come and I weld and do stuff for them, you know. Well, you save a lot of money knowing how to do your own welding. And I said, you can do that. You got to learn it, like I did. But a lot of them don't have the patience to do it, and they don't want to do it. And truly, some of them shouldn't do it because they don't have the knack to do it.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
I could talk all afternoon. But, well, I've certainly enjoyed the Farmers Union and cooperatives. That's been my life. I've enjoyed it. Keeps your mind working. My son lives out in Montana, and he's looking at acreages out there, and they don't have no water on them, and they got to put it in a tank, and somebody will haul water. And I said, has anybody ever heard about rural water in Montana? Well, I've never seen any, he said. And I said, how come? Well, probably there wasn't guys like you that worked hard for it. But he used to kind of criticize me because I was at meetings and stuff a lot.
And we didn't talk about rural water. How was that process around here? Do you have rural water here now?
Excellent. I spent 11 years on our rural water board and 9 years on the state board. I was involved with BDM rural water from the time it started, before it started.
What does BDM stand for?
Brown Day in Marshall County. But they're in all of Roberts County now, pretty near all of Roberts County. Over around Ortley and Summit, they don't have rural water. And they need it. And I told them at the last board meeting, every annual meeting I tell them, how come you aren't putting water in for them? It costs too much. I said, that's discrimination. I said, them people need water just as bad as we needed water.
What's your source of water around here?
We got excellent wells up northeast of Britain. We have super good water. And we spent lots of hours on rural water. They did an expansion into Roberts County. I don't know how many meetings we had in Roberts County. They tried to start their own water system, but they never could get it fly. We got it going. Took a while.
You have the countryside pretty well covered here then?
Pretty, around here it's 100%. I was in Pierpont one time at spring season, and Steve Cameron, the manager, he said, BDM sucks. I said, what makes you say that? They haven't got enough water. They got plenty of water. I said, you guys remember that? Do you remember that little questionnaire they sent out before they put in real water? It said, how much water are you going to use? Well, pretty much everybody said, we'll use water for the house, which probably use 3,000 gallons a month. Going to wash the car with well, because our well water's too bad to wash the car. We aren't going to water the cows, and we aren't going to water lawns or nothing. I said, how many wells are pumping water in Pierpont community area right now? I said, tell me one guy that's pumping water. There's not one. Everybody's getting water out of BDM. But I said they put the pipe in the ground, probably plus at a third what that questionnaire said. There's not enough pipe in the ground to cover it now. So I said, don't blame BDM. You blame yourself, because nobody was going to water their cows, and nobody was going to spray with it. They were going to use their well water. Now the whole works, everybody sprays it, because they found out quality water works a lot better with spray than crappy water.
Mm-hmm.
So real water is probably just about as important as electricity. We really had bad water here. We spent more money on wells and softeners and treating water, and now we don't even have to have a softener. We pay the water bill, and water's free. We spent more money treating our water than we pay for the water now. But it took cooperation to get real water in. There was several right around here that didn't want it and wouldn't give easements. And they got water now. They found out when the well went bad, they found out it cost $10,000 to put a well in, and they found out they could pay a water bill a long time with that real water.
Mm-hmm.
Rural water was really interesting, and was a fun time of my life too.
Telecommunications, do you have a telephone co-op around here too?
Mm-hmm.
Servicing that?
That's Venture Communications out of Highmore.
Highmore, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a little story I won't get into right now.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
Well, I don't know. I suppose I've covered things pretty good.
Okay. We've been visiting with Franklin Olson. Thank you for participating in the Cooperative Legacy Project.